Greetings. My name is Anthony James, and I am the Interim Vice President of Institutional Diversity at Miami University. Today, we have a short video to help encourage responsible civic engagement during what is certainly a tense political season. Some may wonder how this fits into the purview of the Office of Institutional Diversity. Well, here at Miami, we follow an inclusive excellence framework, which means that inclusivity is built into all that we do. Because we live in a large and pluralistic institution, there exists in our community a wide range of political values and beliefs. Thus, it is helpful to provide our community members with some guidelines to be civically engaged and to promote peace and understanding. To help with that, I have asked my friend and colleague, Dr. John Foran, to join me today. Dr. Foran is Executive Director of Miami University Menard Center for Democracy, as well as an Associate Professor and Chair in the Department of Justice and Community Studies. He will provide us with an overview of the Menard Family Center, discuss the importance of civic engagement and having meaningful dialogue across the political spectrum, and share some upcoming programs related to this topic. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Foran.
Thanks, Anthony. Let me actually just go ahead and sort of give an overview of what the Menard Family Center for Democracy is, since it's relatively new on campus. So the Menard Family Center opened about a year ago, sort of formally in November, right before the pandemic hit. So that's been an interesting project in terms of adjusting goals and timelines and that kind of thing. But the basic idea was to build on some of the previous work that had been going on for years at Miami on civic engagement, broadly defined, on political engagement, grassroots mobilization, intensive examination of issues of social justice, issues of citizen participation in governance, ultimately. We've been doing a lot of that kind of thing, which is really core to the mission of a public university like Miami for years. So good examples of that would be the Janus Forum that continues to be sponsored by the Department of Political Science, among others. We have put a little plug in, we have a Janus Forum coming up the end of the month, and I'll circle back to that actually. This idea being that dialogue specifically across ideological lines, across difference, ultimately is central not only to the education of our students, but also to the broader mission of a public university to contribute to small d democracy in our communities. So there's been, as I said, there's been a lot of work at Miami for years on this, in teaching, research, and service, ultimately. So, you could just make a big list here. The Inside Washington program for years, about 20 years, has gotten students into DC to sort of interact with thought leaders and sort of learn about how government and politics and media and sort of civic action generally works. We've had lots of departmental lectures that are sponsored. The Over the Rhine residency program in architecture is a good example, sort of attempts to get students at our Miami community generally engaged in politics and civic affairs, again, broadly defined. So what the Menard Family Center basically does is it, in teaching, research, and service, tries to find ways to engage our community, engage our students, engage our faculty, staff, and our broader community in civic dialogue and civic participation, again, broadly defined, to try to get us to think deeply about what our role is in a community, how we can work collectively to identify and solve civic problems, of which we have many, and especially in an election year like this, where there's a lot of polarization, there's a lot of division, find ways to bridge those ideological differences and political differences and talk about issues of common concern. How does civic engagement relate generally to issues of diversity, issues of inclusion, equity? Civic engagement not only benefits our students, among others, in terms of helping them to sort of understand the world they live in and understand how to engage people who are different from themselves and sort of dialogue with them. But there's a lot of research in political science and in other fields that shows that a civically engaged community has a better quality of life, has a better ability for people of different backgrounds, different points of view, being able to come together to solve community problems. So there's interesting research, for instance, in criminal justice that healthy civic communities, as the term is often used, have lower crime rates, have broader rates of community involvement in sort of identifying issues of concern and bringing people together outside of government, sort of, grassroots civic involvement. All of these things are good for the quality of life, as well as just the education of our students. So on the research side, so as I said, we're doing all three of our main components of our work here at Miami. On the research side, we're working on, for instance, this is a continuation of what we've done for years, the Ohio Civic Health Index, sort of trying to measure and figure out how are we doing in Ohio and Southwest Ohio, and more generally, with something sort of popularized by Robert Putnam and Bowling Alone, this idea of social bonds, this idea of social cohesion, our ability to talk to one another, to identify with one another, to feel empathy for one another. So Miami's, for quite a while, been a leading institution in terms of research on that here in Ohio. So we're continuing that. On the curriculum side, we're developing some new courses, new programs. We have a course debuting in the spring, for instance, on sort of what do we mean when we talk about freedom? What do we mean when we talk about civic responsibility, those sorts of things. We have some faculty development work going on in the spring and into the fall, how to engage, how to sort of incorporate civic development into courses, that kind of thing. But a lot of what we're doing right now, as much as we can in a pandemic, is sponsor programs, try to bring diverse voices to campus who can talk about some of the issues we're facing and some of the challenges we're facing, and talk about some of the basic institutions of democratic governance and how they serve this role, and basically how can we figure out as a community, broadly defined, how can we figure out how to bridge these differences that we're emphasizing so much right now and work together ultimately. So to give you a couple of examples of our programming coming up right now, it's very focused on the election coming up. So between now and election day, for instance, we have, if I can make a pitch, basically, I don't know when this video will go out, but on Monday, let's see, it'd be Monday the 19th, which may be today, which is, probably after people watch this video. We have Brian Stelter, who is the chief media correspondent for CNN, who is coming to campus via Zoom, basically to talk with students about the role of the media, but also present a lecture and a Q&A on basically how the media, the role of journalism, the role of media, to identify issues important to all communities in our society and sort of inform the public and sort of serve as one of those mediating institutions between government and the people, ultimately, how that role has evolved over time. That's Monday night, although if this video goes out later, that will be archived on our website too. So, and people can watch that. Ought to be interesting. A little bit later in the month, we have a scholar from the University of Michigan coming to talk about Belarus, to give us kind of a comparative perspective on democratization in that society and some of the roadblocks that are happening there. That's co-sponsored with the Havikhurst Center for Russian and Post-Soviet Studies. We have then the Michael J. Colligan History Project partnering with us on the October 26th to look at the issue of pandemics. And again, trying to look at multiple perspectives on this, on a social issue here, putting it in historical perspective. So scholars from Miami, Ohio State, some community leaders get together and talk about basically this, how do we deal with this problem and make sure that, and one of the focal points of that discussion will be basically some of the concerns about social justice that have arisen in the context of the pandemic, that different communities are being impacted disproportionately. Communities of color are being disproportionately impacted with the coronavirus crisis, and what we can do as a society to address that concern. Later in the month, we have another, and I said I'd circle back to this, another Janus Forum, co-sponsored by the Department of Political Science, which will bring Donna Brazil, who's a former chair of the Democratic National Committee, and Joe Grogan, who is former director of President Trump's Domestic Policy Council, was on the coronavirus task force. And they'll basically discuss the 2020 elections and the aftermath, essentially, that's likely to happen there. The Janus Forum is a good example of the kinds of things we're trying to do, which is bring people with different perspectives on this issue together and to talk in a civil manner with one another. And it doesn't mean they agree, but the whole idea is they share ideas and engage in a civic dialogue, essentially, that we can all learn from ultimately. So looking farther down the road, we have lots of programming coming in the spring as well that I hope people will join us for. And I think it's I'm very excited to be a part of this. I think it should contribute a lot to the sort of vibrancy of our community here on campus. So thanks for letting me give a pitch.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for that. Certainly a lot of things going. This is a difficult political season, and we have a responsibility to not only help our community, but to also help our neighboring communities and thinking about how to live in such a diverse and pluralistic society where people are going to have different views. And so thank you so much for your work at the Menard Center. I will grab a link from you, and when I post this video, I'll be sure to post it so that individuals know where to sign up, or if they miss one, where they can, excuse me, go back and watch it. So I appreciate that. And thanks again for joining us. And we appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the work you're doing as well. Thanks.
Thanks. And thanks everyone for watching. And we will see you at the programming. Thanks. Have a wonderful day.